Good evening and welcome to The Report with me, John Rees. Tonight we'll be looking at new anti-terror plans by the UK government which require nursery school staff and registered childminders to report on toddlers. And we'll also be looking at Lebanon's plan to impose visa-like restrictions on Syrian refugees for the first time. But first up, today marked the first anniversary of last year's controversial poll in Bangladesh which saw many opposition parties boycotting the vote. Afzal Ahmed has this report.
Deadly clashes have erupted on the streets of Bangladesh today, on the first anniversary of the election boycott last January. 2 supporters of the opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party were killed and 15 others injured after they clashed with Awami League activists in the northern town of Natur. Violence also broke out in the capital Dhaka and in around half a dozen towns. The protests followed the house arrest by police of the main opposition BNP leader Begum Khaleda Zia in a Dhaka office over the weekend. Zia urged activists to take to the streets in the thousands as part of a campaign to force the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, to hold fresh multi-party polls. She has declared today's anniversary as Democracy Killing Day. Hasina, who has been in power since 2009, was re-elected on January the 5th last year in what was effectively a one-horse race, after the BNP and about 20 other opposition parties boycotted the polls over rigging fears. Zia's boycott was sparked by her arch-rival's refusal to step down before the election and allow the contest to be organised by a neutral caretaker administration. The caretaker system was in place for previous polls. The boycott by the BNP and its allies meant a majority of members in the 300-seat parliament were returned unopposed, effectively handing on a plate 5 years more of power. Many of the BNP's leaders have since been detained or charged in connection with the violence that followed the election, which has hampered their efforts to press for new polls. The violence last year was a culmination of the bloodiest year of political unrest in Bangladesh's short history, with tensions also heightened by the death sentences passed on prominent political figures over their role in the 1971 independence war. Afzal Ahmed, The Report.
Well, joining me in the studio is Abu Baker Molla, who's spokesperson for the Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami in the UK and Europe, and Mufassil Islam, who's a human rights lawyer and blogger. Welcome to the show, both of you. So, Abu, the BNP calling these protests, is it going to make any difference?
It's not BNP alone. This is the 20 parties who has called for countrywide blockade for indefinite period. Of course, it will make the difference. We strongly believe, this unelected fascist regime has to leave the power to a neutral caretaker administration to hold a fresh, free election. And it's a popular democratic movement. An uprising has started, and no fascist can stay in power in this way for long. They must go. It's a popular demand to hold a fresh and free election.
Okay, well, let me see what Mufassil thinks about that. Mufassil, do you think that's true, that this is going to work, that there's going to be a fresh set of elections?
No, I don't think it's going to work, first of all. Yes, we are all behind the fact that Khaleda Zia is a highly respected lady who was prime minister more than 2 times, 3 times definitely. And if that is so, what is the main problem between the 2 major political parties? One wants, both of them are saying that they are willing to have fair and free election. But the precondition for a fair and free election on BNP is one and on Awami League is another. The main problem is with the issue of caretaker government. Until and unless we have that resolved, the protests are not going to lead anywhere because there are massive supporters in both the political parties, although recent polls do suggest that most of the people of the country do support or do lean more towards BNP or BNP alliance, including Jamaat. But the question remains at the pivotal is, what is the solution? If we do not address the issue of caretaker government and whether there is a compromise on any side, well, there will be no solution at all. I don't think so, no.
But you're calling for a caretaker government, presumably, if you want the elections run on the conditions that produced the original protests. That's what you're calling for, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. We are calling for fresh and free election. And unless this Hasina regime leaves the power and leaves the power to a neutral caretaker system. So neutral election cannot be held. So for the sake of a free and fair election, as part of a democratic process, this regime has to go. They must take the power.
It doesn't look as if it's making many concessions. I mean, banging up the leader of the BNP in their own house, that isn't exactly a sort of opening of a negotiation, is it?
Actually, if the Hasina's regime would have listened to the opposition demand, the legitimate demand for a free and fair election, and if Hasina regime had given the opportunity, the democratic opportunity for opposition to hold the rally, as today it was declared for a long time ago that there will be a rally to observe the day of killing of democracy in Bangladesh. If Hasina would not have done that, if Hasina would not have barred Khaleda to come out from home, these protests supposed not to come out. This kind of anarchy supposed not to spread it out. This is the Hasina who is responsible for that. This is the Hasina's police who are responsible for that. This is the Hasina's parties who are responsible for that.
Okay. Mufassil, does the house arrest of the leader of the BNP fuel the protests?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure whether she is under house arrest. Let's make it clear.
Seems to be the reports in the media, doesn't it?
Well, if she is under house arrest, she has the constitutional right under Article 33, 34, and 35 to be produced in front of a magistrate, and that was not done. Secondly, she can be detained, and the police has the power to detain her for reasons they should be giving it to the person who is detained, that means Khaleda Zia here, as soon as possible. Now, police can deny that information as well if the police thinks that giving out this information might jeopardize the security situation in the country. So I'm not still sure. I do not have any concrete proof or suggestion to say that she was told that she was under house arrest. Detention, yes, but there's a massive difference between these two terms.
But, I mean, there's not a lot of political difference to it as far as their supporters are concerned. She's been detained in her house and she's not allowed to come out and even call for protest.
Practically, she's confined. It is akin to detention. Her party leaders are barred to see her, and she has been barred to come out to join in a rally. Not only that, today, the police has used pepper spray on her and on her leadership while they were about to go out to join a protest rally. So government has stopped her to go out. Government has stopped her free movement. Her free movement has been curtailed, which is against her democratic right. And she has been bound to stay. We can say it is a detention. Someone can call it as a confinement, but actually she is in detention. She is in confinement. Forget about the legal term, but she has been barred to.
Mufassil, I mean that's right, isn't it? You can call it whatever you like, but she isn't free to come out of her house, and she wasn't able to make the call for.
Nobody's arguing with that. That's for sure. But what I'm trying to say is here, the Sheikh Hasina's regime is the fascist regime is definitely trying to use all kinds of legal loopholes to make sure that she's not called that she's under house arrest. That's the loophole the present regime is using. That's what I'm trying to make sure.
Okay,
so if you say,
but just let me take you back to the question I asked you first of all. This detention, whatever legal construct is used to justify it, is going to fuel the protest, isn't it?
So, yes, it is going to fuel the protest, but what is the solution unless we address the same issue? If caretaker government, free and fair, and if there's a free and fair election only under caretaker government, are the two political parties are willing to sit down to talk about it? Unless we talk about it, who is going to come and solve the problems? Do you expect some third party to come and solve it? Do you want the army to come in between these two parties and solve it? This has happened time after in the past. This reliance on a expectation of a third party coming in between the two parties, solving the situations must be done and dusted. This is a primitive way of thinking. I do not believe we should develop this culture of expecting a third party, whoever it is, army, to come in between and solve the situation. These two political parties, both the parties, must be in understanding that they need to sit down, and the Awami League has the police and the RAB and everything behind them. On the other hand, BNP has massive popular support. So both have powers on their side, and there will be showdowns. Lives will be lost, and there will be trouble in the country, anarchy in the country. Both parties must understand they need to sit down and talk about it, and talk about it practically, realistically, so that they don't have to wait for some other army or like another Ershad or someone coming in between them, or another Moinu Ahmed to solve their problems.
Is that a danger, that the army would step in?
We do not want that army should step in, but what we demand is that Hasina's regime is an unelected, illegitimate regime. She must bow down to the popular demand that she must leave the power to a neutral caretaker system, which was in place.
Can I come?
Officer, I'll come back to you in a minute. Just let me let him finish his point.
So, as the election usually is supposed to be held under a neutral caretaker system, she must leave the power to a neutral caretaker system. We do not want any third parties to step in. But if Hasina doesn't bow down, due to the popular upsurge and popular movement, the people of the country will decide, and naturally, a neutral caretaker system will be installed naturally due to the popular upsurge. Yeah. And we believe the democratic movement will not fail, and it never fails anywhere in this world.
Mufassil, do you want to come in there?
Yes, please. Let me ask Mr. Abu Baker Molla here as well. All of us do want, even I myself want, this fascist regime to end. But the question remains: what is going to happen if Sheikh Hasina said tomorrow resigns? Who is going to take the power in the meantime? Do you have any set government in waiting? Do you have any proposals? Who is going to take over until another caretaker government takes into effect? Only viable option is to think that army will come in between. So we do not want the army to come again like Moinu Ahmed.
Not necessarily that the army has to come in. Not necessarily that army has to come in. If Hasina decides to leave the power, what she can do, she can call the opposition, say, look, let's form a neutral caretaker government as it was in place before, and I'm leaving the power to a neutral caretaker government for a certain period to hold the election. So it is an easy solution. So army doesn't need to step in, or any other third party doesn't need to step in.
Okay. Abu in the studio, Mufassil on the line. Thank you both very much for your views on that. But I'm afraid that's all we've got time for in this part of the programme. Do rejoin us for the second part of the show, where we'll be taking a look at the controversial measures by the UK government to force teachers to report on toddlers, as well as the rest of today's news. Do stay with us.